I'm making this video because I believe this issue affects a lot of people, and I intend to continue raising it. If this subject matters to you, then please consider following the channel, because this is something I will continue to talk about. Hello, and thank you for watching. I'd like to start this video by saying that I am a UK citizen, and for the purpose of this video, I am speaking as someone who is a UK resident and receives the full UK state pension, based on the full 35 years of national insurance contributions. In other words, a full pension that was earned through a full working life. Now I want to talk about something that I know is a very sensitive subject for many people, and that is the UK state pension for people who choose to live abroad. At the moment, as many of you will know, whether your UK state pension increases each year depends on which country you live in. In some countries, the pension increases each year. In other countries, the pension is frozen and never increases. And I would like to give you my personal view on this, but only in one specific situation. My view applies only to people who have qualified for the full UK state pension through the full 35 years of contributions. Not people who have bought extra years, not partial pensions, but people who worked and contributed for a full working life to qualify for the full pension. And my personal view is this: if you have worked long enough and contributed enough to qualify for the full UK state pension, then that pension should increase each year in line with UK government policy, no matter where in the world you choose to live. That is my personal view. But I also understand that this is a complicated subject, and not everyone will agree. So in this video, I'd like to talk through the issue, look at both sides, and at the end, I would really like to hear what you think. So, why is the system like this? Why does the UK government believe this is acceptable? The official position is based on reciprocal agreements between countries. The UK has agreements with some countries to protect each other's pensioners. And where those agreements exist, the UK state pension increases each year. Where there is no agreement, the pension is frozen at the level when the pensioner first starts receiving it. So, the system is not based on how much you contributed or how many years you worked. It is based on which country you choose to live in and whether that country has an agreement with the UK. That is the administrative explanation. But this is where many people begin to question the logic, not legally, but morally. Because when we were working and paying national insurance contributions, there was no option to opt out. We were required to contribute. It was part of the system, and we paid into it for 30, 35, 40 years. There was no choice then. But now, it seems that the system has an opt-out, not for the person who paid in, but for the government who is paying out. And that is where some people feel the balance does not seem quite right. The government has already accepted that pensions must increase each year to protect pensioners from inflation. That is why pensions increase every year in the UK and in certain other countries. So the principle has already been accepted. Pensions must rise so that elderly people can live and keep up with the cost of living. So the question many people ask is a simple one. If the increase is necessary to protect pensioners in the UK, why is it not necessary to protect pensioners who live in other parts of the world when they paid into the same system for the same number of years? This is not an easy subject, and I do understand that governments have to make financial decisions and set policies. But this is where the discussion moves away from administration and into fairness. Not what is legal, not what is written in policy, but what is fair. Many pensioners who live abroad are not wealthy people. Many of them worked all their lives, retired, and simply moved somewhere where the cost of living was lower, so they could live a modest but comfortable life. Many are now in their 70s, 80s, and older, and many rely heavily on their UK state pension as a large part of their income. But if your pension is frozen for 10 or 20 years, inflation slowly reduces what that pension can buy. Each year it buys a little less. Less food, less heating, less security. And right at this moment in time, that becomes even more important. We are living in a period where there are conflicts in the world, rising prices, rising energy costs, and increasing pressure on the cost of living. And these problems hurt the most vulnerable people the most, especially elderly people living on fixed incomes, wherever they live in the world. Governments, including the UK government, are already taking steps to try to control prices and to help with the cost of living, particularly for those most affected. But sadly, it would seem that the UK government is prepared to turn its back on around 500,000 of its own elderly citizens simply because they are not living in a country that the UK recognises for pension increases. To me, that does not seem right. To me, that seems unjust and morally wrong. So again, the question comes back to fairness, not whether the system is legal, but whether it is fair. And before I finish, I want to make one final point, because I think this matters when we talk about fairness. In this video, I have been talking specifically about people who qualified for the full UK state pension through a full working life. 35 years of national insurance contributions. Not everyone qualifies for the full pension, and there are many different reasons for that. Some people worked abroad for many years. Some people worked in industries where they were paid offshore. Some people made different career choices and were not contributing fully into the UK system. And that is not a criticism. That is just the reality that people make different choices in life and have different opportunities. But I do think there is a difference between someone who contributed for a full working life into the UK system and someone who did not. In simple terms, you grow the seeds you sow. So my personal view is very specific. If a person contributed for a full working life and qualified for the full UK state pension, then that pension should be protected against inflation, wherever that person chooses to live. Not because they live in one country or another, but because they paid into the same system for the same number of years as everyone else who receives the full pension. That seems fair to me. This should not just be a discussion for the future. This is an issue that affects hundreds of thousands of elderly people now, and it needs to be addressed. I am very happy to continue writing to members of Parliament and continuing to raise this issue. But all I ask from you, if you believe this is an issue worth discussing, is that you support this video. Please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing this video, because that shows that there are many people who believe this issue matters and that it should be looked at again. Thank you for watching.